Welcome to Keeping It Green, a podcast for ornamental plant professionals and enthusiasts, with hosts Margaret Pickoff and Tim Abbey.
Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Green, a podcast from Penn State Extension for ornamental plant professionals and enthusiasts. I'm one of your hosts, Margaret Pickoff. I'm a horticulture educator with Penn State Extension, and on each episode, I will be joined by one of my colleagues on the green industry team as a co-host. On today's episode, my co-host is Tim Abbey. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Margaret. How are you?
I'm doing well, enjoying this beautiful weather we're having in Philadelphia. On today's episode, we'll be joined by Medrano and Tim Martinez from the National Association of Landscape Professionals Latino Landscape Network. Before we get to our interview with Mari and Tim, we'll start out with a quick check-in about what we extension educators are seeing out in the field or what we're thinking about at this time. We're in mid-April here, and I can tell you, Tim, we're in a very hot spell for April in Philadelphia. So everything is blooming. It's really feels like August already, which is a little disconcerting. And next week, it's going to drop back down into the 50s, and then we're going to get some nighttime temperatures in the low 40s. So who knows what the plants are thinking, but it's been very confusing for all of us out here, just trying to figure out what time of year it is. But
yeah, definitely. It's I think we're probably like 3 weeks ahead of, plant phenology wise. And I do like the warmer weather, but 85, 88, the early part of April in the Northeast, that's a little unpleasant, I guess. Or I get sort of, a vision of our future as the planet starts to warm or continues to warm.
Yeah. Here in Philly, we're seeing trees. Our trees are starting to leaf out. We've got cherries that are all in bloom or past bloom. I just saw some dogwoods that are starting to flower. Just kind of oscillating between kind of seasonal springtime temperatures and the 80s. So getting a little bit of a little taste of summer here. But it's kind of exciting because all the plant, everything's blooming all at once, which makes me happy. But so we'll see what this means for our growing season. Obviously, we had a really warm winter as well, and so we'll see what this effect is of having us kind of a couple weeks ahead of time as we go in our growing season.
That old saying, you can't do anything about the weather. So, we just got to roll with what's thrown at us.
That's very true. Try to stay in the shade today. Great. Well, let's bring on our guests for today. Mari Medrano is Human Resources Director for CoCal Landscape Services based in Denver, Colorado. And Tim Martinez is Executive Vice President of the Western Division of LandCare, which is a commercial landscape management company that operates around the country. And both Mari and Tim are members of the Latino Landscape Network. And so welcome to both of you. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us, Margaret and Tim.
Yes.
So we like to start out by getting a sense of what our guests do out in the world. And so I wonder, maybe we'll start with Mari, if you want to give us an idea of what your role is at your current company.
Yeah, sure. So I am the Human Resources Director. I pretty much do everything regarding employee relations. I'm in charge of all our benefits. I'm in charge of safety, in charge of the payroll, and I do a lot of training in-house, and I'm involved with the Latino Landscape Network as well locally with our landscape organization. I sit on their board, and we have established a small committee as well, the Latinos Committee, and pretty much, go out and help with recruiting or with training, and trying to elevate our Latino coworkers in their current positions. So yeah, I do a little bit of everything in CoCal as well. I'm recruiting currently our H-2B, bringing our H-2B visa co-workers from Mexico into the United States right now. So yeah, I have a fun job.
Yeah, and from what I understand, it's a family business. Is that right?
It is. It's my father's business. We've been in business 31 years now. So we're pretty happy.
Great. Thank you so much. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, I have been with LandCare now for, I think, about 13 years. I've been in the green industry for almost my entire career. I actually started out in the golf industry is where I began my career. So the technical side of golf course superintendent, and then have found my way to the commercial landscape side of the business. My role in the organization is in servitude to the western part of the United States for LandCare. So we have business units that stem from, well, we're in 26 states nationally throughout the United States, but the piece of the business that I support ranges from Washington down through Oregon, all of California, and then Arizona and Nevada. And so it's a fun job and lots of challenges. And I don't wear as many hats as Madi wears, but I wear a lot of hats because that's a lot of different technical aspects of the business that you run into, from turf grass, ornamental horticulture, as well as the nuances of the customer base that we service there. So
that's really interesting. And I think as we kind of continue with this podcast and we're interviewing different people, we're Tim, Abbey, and I are in the plant world and that part of horticulture and pest and disease management and stuff. And it's very cool to hear from the business side of things as well, and how that all operates. So we're excited to have your perspective there. We know Madi has to get going in just a little bit of time, so I want to spend a little bit of time with her. But before we kind of dive into CoCal, and I do have questions, and I'm sure Tim does as well. So the Latino Landscape Network is a networking group through the National Association of Landscape Professionals. On a previous episode, we had interviewed some folks from the Women in Landscape Network. And so we have an idea of kind of what these networks do or what they're meant to do and the value that they bring. But I'd love to hear from both of you about what the network is and what value you feel it brings to the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Latino Landscape Network, we're fairly new. I think we're about 3 years into NALP. Formerly, we were the National Landscape, the Hispanic National, NHLA, National Hispanic Landscape Alliance. Sorry, it's been a minute. And the organization, or the alliance, was a group of different companies throughout the U.S., Latino owned or had a big employee base that was Latino. And we came together to kind of, look at the issues that Latino landscapers were kind of facing in our industry, and how we can, again, elevate all the Latinos into different positions, more management, more small business owners, and then also, maybe get some leeway politically. And so we were pretty successful. And then we partnered up with NALP to kind of, their mission, is big within the whole landscape industry. And so we wanted to take their mission and combine it with our mission and cater to our Latino landscape colleagues, I guess. And so, we've been able to reach a lot of people that probably, we couldn't in our own little state. Now we can reach them nationwide and, come together and have one big voice.
How do you recruit individuals to join the network? I think throughout the country, and and particularly like areas where you both are working, you probably have a predominant number of Hispanic workers, doing the landscaping work. And even though some people might view those as like lower on the food chain as far as like how the business goes, but how do you let those people know this network is out there and that it could provide them an avenue to move up within a company?
Absolutely. So with NHLA, we would target a lot of organizations, their expos, right? When they put on an exposition, we were invited to kind of come out and do Spanish training. And we continued that with NALP, where we were given a kind of a platform to come into their big exposition and put on our trainings in Spanish, as well as, NALP helps us with marketing. And so we have, we have the website and any kind of communication that comes to, a lot of members of NALP. So we were able to attract not only NHLA members, but also now NALP members. And so I think it became kind of inviting when a lot of small business members that became NALP members saw that they also have a Latino committee that they could join as well.
I kind of wonder, and this is for either of you guys, what's the necessity of a network like this? And, how does it tie into some of the major challenges that the Latino community has within the green industry?
Okay. Is that for me or for either one?
Either one.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, so, obviously this network is doing a lot of really great work, and I just wonder, and I have some, ideas of why it's necessary, but why do you feel a network like this is necessary, and how does it address some of the big challenges that Latinos in the green industry are facing?
Well, I think we're a majority, of workers field-wise and administratively. And I think a network like this, like I had said before, it gives us a voice, and then maybe a path and an avenue to maybe move up in the ranks, not only stay stagnant in the positions that we have, but maybe move more into a leadership position. And, we try to give the tools to achieve those positions. Right, Tim?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's a lot of things that we're trying to accomplish, but it's a big component of that is advocacy on behalf of the Latino demographic in government. And so things that are important would be, the importance of guest worker visas and the H-2B, and exactly what Madi is doing today, crossing her workers over. And so I know Madi and I have spent a lot of time with the NALP group in general, advocating to our congressional representatives and senators, and explaining what the challenges are out in the business. And so in essence, trying to give a voice to the Latino demographic in the industry at large, and then to our governmental agencies where it matters. So H-2B would be one example of it, but there are other things that are highly impactful, like the electrification of equipment. And so how do you get away from gas blowers, and how do we help and better the environment? And then what are those impacts, or the things that we need to be sensitive to not all small business owners, but in particular Latino small business owners. And so there's just a range and a variety of issues that we try to bring that voice to the people that need to make these decisions.
I had a question for both of you, and this is kind of push out for your knowledge on this. I know within the Penn State extension, our green industry team, over the years, and a number of us have tried to reach out to some of the Hispanic workers, within Pennsylvania. And I think now we're trying to make a more concerted effort to do that. And we run into challenges. I'll get on my soapbox and blame the poor American education system, where we don't teach, other languages to young children. So I grew up in northwestern PA, middle of nowhere, and there was no emphasis on learning, Spanish, where I think it would have been, such a benefit to me now. So I know there's a language issue. Like, I can't go and just kind of, I can't give like a pest management talk to Hispanics without somebody there to translate for me. And it really is, it bothers me that I'm fumbling around with the question too. I'm like, I don't know how to reach these people, because sometimes when we advertise our programs for, that can be done in Spanish, is that it goes to maybe the business owner or a manager, and that never gets communicated down to the workers who really could benefit from going. And I think we struggle on how to do that. So I'm dumping the whole world on you to see if you have any.
Yeah. Well, Tim, welcome to Madi and I's world. And so I think what you're stumbling across is a key challenge that we wake up every day trying to solve for. When you talk about engagement or communication with the demographic, it falls into two buckets, because your methodology and your communication tactics are going to vary based on these two buckets. And so the two buckets that I would put in broad categorization would be the owners. And so there is a group of Latino owners that own these small businesses. They're generally in the $5 million range. They may be $10 million, but they're they could be significant. Some of them are $2 million. They generally have less than 50 employees, and then many of them may have 10 employees. It may be a smaller shop. And so reaching out and engaging that demographic of the Latino business owner requires a different communication strategy. And so then I was looking at some data. The National Association of Landscape Professionals conducted an industry survey. Pennsylvania is not broken out, so it's lumped in with other mid-Atlantic states. And I may be off on the number, but I recall that the number of Latinos in the green industry in the mid-Atlantic was something like 57 or 59%. So there's a lot of folks that are involved in this. And when you're trying to reach out to the frontline workers that could most benefit from technical aspects of training that you want to provide, those individuals are very difficult to get to. Even inside of my organization, 4,000 some employees inside of LandCare, it's difficult for us to get to our frontline team members. The Latino Landscape Network, at its very inception, one of the first things that we were tasked with was to conduct our own survey. And our first question was, how do you wish to be engaged? And so I don't recall the exact numbers. I can go back and find this, but I think we engaged somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, we had 60% of our people were owners and 40% of our people were frontline individuals. That's who participated in this survey. But by and large, all of them stated that video wasn't a way to engage with them. Some of them liked email, some of them liked text, but Facebook came up to be the number one answer that was the most popular. And so Facebook portals, Facebook groups, Facebook messaging, that seemed to be the method that they were the most comfortable in communicating. So now I'm just talking about channels. I'm not talking about their native language, right? I'm just saying, how do you get from point A to point B? What we've learned is that Facebook has been an effective way to communicate with our team members and the members that follow us. So I would say, Tim, that the nuances that you should be thinking about from the extension services perspective is what is the information that you want to convey, and ultimately who that target audience you wish to connect with. And then depending on what that message is, you're going to need a couple of different ways to communicate. You're going to use one set of tools with the owners, and you're going to use a different set of tools with the frontline landscapers, the team members out in the field.
Okay, kind of a follow-up. Does NALP have, or are you able to access, people, individuals, or businesses who are part of the Latino network through NALP, like their geographic location, to like find out, like the companies here in like the Mid-Atlantic who, are, Hispanic owned, or, a managerial position? Because it would be, I think, for me, beneficial to look up and see, I have not run into one in the counties that I cover in Pennsylvania, but I'm wondering, am I missing them, or are there some that are just outside of the counties that I cover? Because I would love to, reach out to them, on a more individual basis and have that interaction. So I didn't know if there was a way to find out, where these places or people are located.
Yeah, I think the National Association of Landscape Professionals has that information. We've conducted this pretty extensive survey. There was another individual from your group, I don't recall their name, but they were asking me specific demographic questions, and I gave them the entire survey. I can go back and look and figure out who that individual was. They reached out to both Marty and myself. I provided them the totality of the survey. There's a lot of anonymization within that. And so to find out who exactly the business owner is, I would encourage you to partner with the National Association of Landscape Professionals, and they can probably point you in that direction. So
you're correct. I mean, I think some of that stuff's probably, if you were being surveyed, some of that's private, and it's not like trying to pry to see their answers, just more to, kind of pry to see like, where are they located?
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like how many employees do you have, and what does your revenue look like? So there's other things. So I think once you get down to the brass tacks of what you're looking for, look, just tell me where these people are, and so I can make my own outreach. I'm sure NALP would be able to assist you with that. So.
And I kind of wonder, to sort of follow up on this theme about training of your employees, and I recognize you might not be the ones providing the training directly, but for each of your companies, who is providing that? Is it an in-house service where you have, people, more senior workers who are training in pesticide safety and all, how to maintain a landscape, or do you bring in an extension service? Or, it's always interesting as educators to know who's providing the education for businesses like yours.
Absolutely. So at CoCal, we love training. We do training year round, especially in the winter. We do CoCal University, and it is our managers. I'm here with my brother Carlos Medrano, and he's in charge of all of the maintenance. He's the VP of our company, and he does all of the pesticide and chemical training. My other brother, who's general manager, he does a lot of irrigation training, a lot of maintenance training, construction, as well as I do. But we also bring in vendors, partners that are experts in that field. And they also offer training, vendors, big vendors like Site One, or, irrigation vendors like here in Denver, CPS, they put on their training. As well as, again, our local organization, ALCC, they put on training. And so we invest a lot in training, safety training of all kinds. I think we do it both in-house, out-house. We just like to make sure that the guys have all the information at their hands.
And is most of that training done in Spanish, or is it bilingual, or do you have separate sessions for English and Spanish?
It is bilingual. It's in Spanish. We're fully bilingual here at CoCal, but we do both actually. The part of the staff that doesn't speak Spanish, we conduct trainings in English, and mostly out-house trainings are, they're pretty much in English predominantly, but we push as well as for our staff, our field staff, to really engage in English. And so we kind of push them to take classes, and I look for classes for them to attend to speak English. And but we're pretty proud of our Spanish as well, so we offer both.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And both of you also had, did field time too, out doing the kind of, the nuts and bolts of, being involved in the green industry. So I think with that, you know the importance of those being properly trained to go out and plant properly, or plant selection and the pest management aspects of that. So I think that's a credit to yours, your background, that you're not just coming in like kind of like management and trying to kind of trickle down stuff. You've kind of started down here. And I think with anybody who's a good manager is you've had that field experience, no matter whether it's in the landscaping business or not. So I like to hear that, companies are really invested in educating their employees, no matter what it is, because I think, in my career, I've met some who, it's the base amount of information that they want their employees to get. If they got a pesticide applicator's license, they just get the bare number of recertification credits, and that's it. They don't need to learn anything else, which to me is, you don't retain employees that way either. I think you build up more of a personal relationship. So kind of a long-winded non-question there, but
well, I mean, I did a limited time in the field, but that was important to me, because how can I advocate for somebody if I don't know what their conditions are? And so it was pretty important. It was against my father's wishes. I kind of went back, like, can I work for you this summer? And that's how I did it. But it was important to me, because I can't represent somebody fully if I don't know their experience.
That makes a lot of sense.
yeah, thank you
Mari,
for taking my inelegant ramblings and making it more of an elegant answer.
Mari, I see on the CoCal website that you are certified minority-owned business enterprise, and this is through the Mountain Plains Minority Supplier Development Council. And so it looks like that means that at least 51% of the company is minority-owned, managed, and controlled. And so I kind of wonder from you, what's the value of a certification like that? What does it tell your customers? What does it mean to your business?
Well, it's huge, actually. Apart from Landscape World, I also sit on the board of the Hispanic Contractors of Colorado, and that's the construction world. A little new for me, but we focus big on getting members into MBE or NWBE, like minority women owned, because it gives you a leg into federal contracts or state contracts, but it also shows we're a minority, and we're also playing the big ball game. but it's huge. It's a long, arduous process, but I think it's something that we in the landscape world should push more, so that our small business owners can get their foot in the door and maybe be more competitive in some of the big contracts, because a lot of landscape does construction, and a lot of big GCs look for that MBE certification. And it's pretty important for us to have it.
And I guess a follow-up to that, and maybe this relates to, I don't know if this is something that the network does formally or informally, but something that came up that was really important with the Women in Landscape Network was the idea of mentorship. And so not only seeing people who, for me, seeing another woman in a position of leadership is really helpful for me, and knowing I have someone to talk to and ask questions. And I think I assume that it's similar in the Latino community, and obviously both of you are in positions of leadership, and yeah, I'm sure that's very valuable. And so, is there mentorship that happens? Is that a formal process that's kind of cultivated by the Latino Landscape Network, or does that kind of just happen organically through the channels where you're reaching these workers?
I would say it's a combination of all of those things. Madi and I first began this relationship by coming to these meetings, and so I know her dad, I know her brothers, I know Madi's background. You just kind of start connecting dots. But that networking component is really, really important. And what we're trying to do is to show other Latino owners that there are people just like them. You may be tucked away in Pennsylvania or Kansas or wherever you're at, but there are others like you, likely experiencing the same challenges that you're experiencing. And there are other brown individuals that are out in the business that are experiencing your challenges. We speak the same language that you do. We understand the challenges that you're faced with, and it creates that networking opportunity. And that's really the power of what our network is. Very similar, Margaret, to what you described with the women in landscaping. And so there's safety in numbers, there's comfort in numbers, there's learning and growth in numbers, and that's one of the key things that we're trying to get across.
It does, it connects us, I think, and it gives us like Tim said, it's a little safety in numbers, but also, we are not scared to talk about things that's happening without fear of, that competition. We're doing it here locally in Denver as well with the Latinos committee. A lot of the committee are former CoCal employees, but and we're pretty proud of that a lot of people in Colorado have come through CoCal. But it's also kind of put aside that competition and say we can work together here in Colorado. Numbers are huge, and let's see what we can do to advance ourselves in this industry. But we became really good friends, Tim and I, everybody in the network. I mean, just last week we had some colleagues from Chicago, and they were here with their family, and so we hosted them. And so we've been able to go and visit each other's companies and learn from each other, and also help mentor in this case.
So it's an informal piece, Margaret, and then there is a formal component of it. And so in the Latino Landscape Network, there is the Trailblazer program. And so if somebody were a member of NALP and said, hey, I'm looking for a specific mentor, there is a method to connect that mentor with the mentee in a more formalized process inside of NALP. And so it's informal networking, and there is a formal structure in place where members of the LLN have volunteered. I'm one of them, to mentor somebody that wants something a little bit more formal. So I think there's a couple of opportunities out there.
I've got a question that's more like industry wide. And I think in the green industry, there's always been a challenge to get labor to fill positions, and seems to have become even more of an issue post-COVID, not only for the green industry, but for just other industries. How is it, and since you're speaking to people based in Pennsylvania, how is it out west for you to find labor? Do you struggle like we do out here in the eastern part of the country?
Yeah, we struggle. We've had to change our methods a little bit. We do a lot more. We invite a lot more women into our company, and we're kind of open to different schedules to accommodate, moms as well, where they can go and drop off the kids and then come and work some hours and then go and pick them up. We've had to kind of structure differently, and so we're pretty proud of our growing women population within CoCal. But we do struggle, which is why we're here with the H-2B program. But we can't fully rely on the H-2B program because it's so volatile and it's such a competition to get the visas. So, we try to look at other avenues and getting labor.
I know it's like when we've done some industry analysis, within Pennsylvania, that's one of the issues that comes up for either, number one or two, or just labor related issues. And it's another thing that within extension, we've struggled to really address that need, because a lot of it's out of our control or out of our skill set. So yeah, I was just wondering, if it was just an issue for you also out, in the western part of the country, which I guess unfortunately it is.
Yeah, I think Marty hit it on the head there when she said that we've had to adjust. And so I think for owners that don't adjust, it's going to be a pretty rough road to hoe. And that adjustment is so difficult, changing human behavior and changing things that you were very successful with years past are just not working anymore. And so that adjustment period and being open to new ideas leads you to a variety of things. I know I had a conversation with Marty. I admire what they've done with their women. I believe she has a full female crew, from a crew supervisor down to all of the employees, and they roll together. And so, being able to adjust your labor pool of what you're looking for, very typically, and this is a broad generalization, but you can talk to most landscape owners and landscape leaders, and you're looking for somebody that is male between the ages of 20 years old and 35 years old that has some kind of landscaping experience, and most likely they're going to be Latin or Latino. And so that's the demographic and the pool that you're trying to fish in. That becomes very difficult. You start opening that up to, high school students and going and recruiting at trade or technical schools, and catching people early to introduce them into this industry, and then to demonstrate that, hey, you're not just out cutting grass, but there is succession planning and career opportunities for you. And so once you start doing that, you're now broadening your labor pool that you're targeting. And so the first step is you've got to be open to change. And I think that's what CoCal's been really successful with. And I think most business owners are really going to have to lean into that. So.
We actually, going back to your question about women and mentor. So without thinking about it, our construction enhancements department is led by women. All 3 business developers are women. Obviously, our field staff is male, but they also have a lot of women working, that construction enhancements. But, that department, which is typically led by men, is right now led by a whole women leadership staff. So we're
Wow.
pretty proud of that.
Yeah, one of my questions was going to be kind of like, how can businesses be more inclusive of Latino workers or, other types of workers? And it really, from what you've said, it really goes hand in hand with this labor issue. Like, if you're having a hard time hiring, what do you have to do to make changes, or offer different types of things or flexibility or opportunities in order to kind of recruit people and keep people? So it's an interesting kind of topic. And I think you guys brought up some really good ways that companies can do that successfully and be more inclusive. As we're sort of getting towards the end of our conversation, I kind of want to look towards the future a little bit. And so I wonder, and this is kind of a broad question, but what each of you guys feels is the future of your industry. And this can relate to the Latino community or more broadly, but I'm just always curious for people who are out there doing the work, and on the business side of this industry, what does the future look like? Do you see anything on the horizon that excites you? Any big hurdles that you feel might get worse or better? What do you see when you look towards the future of this industry?
I'll go really quick. I'm excited. Like, I think Tim had mentioned it early, about the electrifying of our industry, more sustainable landscape opportunities. I think while that's going to be a big challenge for a lot of business owners, having to convert a lot of our equipment, a lot of our fleet into electricity, but I think it's going to give us more avenues to, become successful at our practice, our business practices. I also am excited about, we've been doing a push the last couple of years because of the diversity and that we will see more leadership in regards to more Latinos sitting on more boards in our organization nationally as well as locally. I think there's going to be a lot of avenue for us to grow. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're taking those steps to getting there. And then having more of a political voice. I'm very political in that sense, and I love that stuff. But maybe moving a lot of us into that political realm to give us that avenue and that voice while somebody's sitting in the political sector, and will give us that connection. That's my view, I guess. But go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I think the advocacy is a big deal, and the voice. And so we spend a lot of time as an association doing that. Just in general, softening our environmental footprint and on the environment is going to be a big deal. And that comes in a bunch of different ways. And so electrification is one component of it. Can bury your head in the sand and hope that it goes away. But the reality of it is, it's probably the right thing that we all should be doing. And so now, how do you do that and make an orderly conversion to that? Reducing emissions and noise abatement and all of the other things that come with that. And so you think about, the challenges that we face, geographically. So water conservation in the West and the Southwest is going to be a big deal. Don't let the snowpack fool you. And the rains that are smacking Central California, this is going to be around for a good period of time. And so we need to be attuned to that, and we need to be attuned to what we can do as stewards of the land and advocates on behalf of our customers to guide them and shepherd them through these challenges, all the while maintaining, beautiful environments, because that's ultimately what we do at the end of the day. And so creating spaces and environments for people to want to be outdoors and enjoy them, that's what we all do. That's why we all got into this industry, and to be able to guide our clients and our customers with all of the, the other headwinds that we're facing. So.
Well, thank you to you both. I like ending on that kind of uplifting note, looking towards the future. So we end all of our interviews kind of the same way. We like to ask our guests what they like to do when they're not working, and just to get a little insight into you personally. But what do you like to do when you're not doing this work?
When I'm not doing this work, I like to play golf. I was a runner, not so much a runner anymore. I do Pilates. So I spend a lot of time outside, outdoors. I have boys, so I need to keep up with them. But yeah, golf, I think, is the new thing. I was here in Arizona, so we played some golf before I came to work. So.
Oh, nice. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I travel a lot, and so I fiercely guard my private time, and so it's family time with the kids and the grandkids. I too am a runner, and so running and biking are really the two things that I like to do. So have a mountain bike and try to run in all of the cities that I'm at, that when I'm working, get up super early in the morning and get that in, and then get the day started. But things that my wife and I and our kids like to do, we like to go to ball games, baseball games in particular. And so I've got a map hanging on the wall with all of the baseball stadiums that I have visited and all of the ones that I've yet to visit. And so try to knock all those out. So just being protective of my personal time, and then give it your all when you're engaged in the business, and then come home and decompress and spend that time with family. So
that's great. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate both of you. Thank you so much for your time and your insight into this really interesting and important topic. I learned so much today. And yeah, we're grateful that you agreed to come on the show. So thank you.
Yes, thank you both very much for giving up part of your workday to spend with us.
My pleasure. Thanks, Margaret. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, take care.